I am the most favored lover of Alston Copperfield. On some informal occasions, I even appeared as Alston Copperfield's girlfriend. 8 years have passed, and now he is ready to get married, but the bride is not me. Indeed, how could a woman of ordinary origin, like me, marry the eldest young master of the Copperfield family? Although I had anticipated this outcome when I was with him. But in the past 8 years, I have paid no less love and hard work. After all, if you don't please Alston Copperfield, where will Alvis Bunyan's medical bills come from? I swallowed the bitterness and helplessness in my heart, and lowered my eyes. Alvis Bunyan's illness was cured in another year. Now, where can I earn 3 million to see Alvis Bunyan? The more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I felt, and the bean-sized tears slipped down one by one. Alston Copperfield looked at me with an eyebrow, then sighed and stepped forward to comfort me. Okay, Nancy Keppel, don't be sad. I'm married. We can be together. I looked up at Alston Copperfield with a delightful look on his face, his scummy and affectionate face, that made my heart flutter whenever I saw it. Really, Alston Copperfield? Great. Looking at the sincerity and admiration on my face, Alston Copperfield was very satisfied. He immediately gave me 500,000 pocket money. Looking at the long string of zeros on my bank card, I stood on tiptoe, and kissed Alston Copperfield lightly on the lips. He chuckled and put his hand on my head, deepening the kiss. Alston Copperfield's kiss was as domineering as his own, and the air in my mouth was snatched away, and my body went limp, and I collapsed into his arms. He picked me up, and walked to the bedroom, but as soon as he put me in bed, his phone rang. Alston Copperfield, with a heavy lust, glanced at it impatiently, but still suppressed his anger and answered. Alston Copperfield's brows furrowed, but he listened with a strain of salt. It was probably Alston Copperfield's father who called, and it was only when his father called that Alston Copperfield looked like he wanted to get angry but couldn't. At the end of the call, I looked at Alston Copperfield obediently. He rubbed his hair with his hand, and his expression was stinky. Nancy Keppel, I'm going back to the old house. Probably in a few days. You go out shopping by yourself. Whatever you want, just swipe my card. I nodded, and put my arm around his waist as I walked the door. Alston Copperfield, well, I'll be back soon. After Alston Copperfield left, the look on my face changed, and I didn't care about the image of snuggling up on the couch and playing games. As a rule of thumb, Alston Copperfield will probably spend a week at the old house. I'm going to take a break today, and get ready to wash Alvis Bunyan's clothes, and visit him in the hospital tomorrow. When I arrived at the hospital, I first went to the front desk to pay Alvis Bunyan 500,000 yuan in medical bills. Alvis Bunyan had severe kidney disease, and the cost of dialysis was more than 8,000 per time, and he had to do it 3 times a week. If I hadn't followed Alston Copperfield, I might have taken my own life, under the pressure of this high medical bill. Alvis Bunyan, who had been hospitalized for many years, always had an abnormal pallor on his face. I touched Alvis Bunyan's hand in distress, opened the thermos, and slowly fed him the chicken soup inside. Nancy Keppel, you can have a drink too. Alvis Bunyan looked at me frail but concerned. All right, drink yours. Tut tut, your little face is as white as I have smeared 10 layers of powder. Not bad, quite a bit. I have the potential to be a little white face. Alvis Bunyan glared at me angrily. Don't talk nonsense. You Alvis Bunyan, I only need to be discharged from the hospital. 1 ab for 3 days, and half a year. You can be a muscular hunk. I didn't answer his words. Just replace the carnations in the ward with sunflowers. They say I don't like sunflowers. Why do you buy sunflowers every time you come? I don't listen to my brother at all, so I don't listen to you. Alvis Bunyan muttered a whisper of grumbling, and I looked back at him and smiled at death. I've paid your hospitalization fee, and this year is the last year. Your kidney source is also matched, and after this year, you can be discharged from the hospital. After you are discharged from the hospital, you will be a cow and a horse for your mother. I didn't have the anger to glare at Alvis Bunyan. After all, he and I grew up without a father or mother, and we depended on each other. When I was a child, I accidentally fell into the water, and it was he who jumped down and rescued me from the shore despite the freezing cold water in the winter. When I was a child, I was bullied by others, and he protected me, and he even dropped out of school early to work to provide for me to go to school. He's sick. I can't ignore him. He's my only relative in this world. After drinking the chicken soup, the drip was almost done. I pushed him down for a walk. This person has to bask in the sun to be healthier. Nancy Keppel, are you still with Alston Copperfield? Alvis Bunyan sighed deeply. I'm the one who bothered you. As he spoke, he was ready to cry. I could only quickly lift his head to prevent tears from flowing out of his eyes. Don't be sensational. I don't suffer. Alston Copperfield is handsome, has a good figure, and has money. The key is to be young and generous. If you want to say that he suffers, he will also suffer. But Alvis Bunyan still didn't eat the oil and salt, and he looked sad with, I understand, and, you suffered. I was speechless. I really don't feel at a loss to be a lover for a romantic man, as long as you don't move the money and don't feel emotional. However, after a long time, will you really not be emotional? After spending some time with Alvis Bunyan in the hospital, I went home. Alston Copperfield was already sitting on the couch, his face gloomy. I immediately put away the relaxed and leisurely expression on my face, and looked well behaved. Alston Copperfield, why did you come back so soon? Alston Copperfield didn't answer me, just looked at me deeply, and slowly exhaled smoke from his mouth. Nancy Keppel, come here. Alston Copperfield's already noble temperament is all the more charming with his deep voice. I walked over to him, and sat down, and he took me into my arms. His burning snort tickled my ears, but it made me blush. Nancy Keppel, why can't she be as well behaved as you? Who is he talking about? Could it be that some of the little goblins have us off Lord Alston Copperfield? I gently stroked Alston Copperfield's full pectoral muscles, and swung myself into his arms. Alston Copperfield is the best male god in the world, and although I have been touching this pectoral muscle for 8 years, I still get excited every time I touch it, and this is amazing. Alston Copperfield suddenly took a puff of his cigarette and kissed me, the strong smell of smoke intoxicating me. But I'm now an innocent little white flower character. He could only cough a few times after licking his mouth, and he looked like he was choking on smoke. I looked at Alston Copperfield affectionately with red eyes, and his shadow was reflected in my eyes. Alston Copperfield was stimulated by me, and his breathing grew heavier. 8 years together make us a perfect fit. Alston Copperfield was half leaning on the head of the bed and smoking a cigarette, but there was always a sadness in his eyes that could not be dissolved. I don't ask much. After all, the sorrow of the wealthy is not something that an ordinary person like me can solve. That's when Alston Copperfield suddenly spoke. Nancy Keppel, you think I'm cowardly. Those who like it dare not open their mouths to say that they want to marry her, and they want to marry those they don't like. For some reason, Alston Copperfield stared straight at me when he talked about the person he liked. I bowed my head shyly, my heart trembling. Alston Copperfield, don't embarrass yourself. I couldn't help him with anything but comfort him. Alston Copperfield looked at me, and rolled over and pressed down. The next morning, Alston Copperfield left after breakfast. As he reached the door, he paused. Nancy Keppel, I'm leaving. You pass by the house to your name. Don't think about me. I watched Alston Copperfield's departing back, and surprisingly didn't say goodbye to him. Just cleaned up the kitchen and went to sleep again. Maybe when I wake up, I'll see Alston Copperfield, smiling evilly on the couch again. Unfortunately, Alston Copperfield didn't return until 6 p.m. I cooked myself a bowl of noodles, but I didn't have an appetite, so I barely ate a few bites. One sat on the couch and let the night swallow me up little by little. There was no reason for this sadness, and I wished that the man named Alston Copperfield would show up and hug me. It was only after sitting on the couch for the night that I really realized that Alston Copperfield would not be coming back. Tears flowed involuntarily. I feel so greedy. I've gotten Alston Copperfield's money, and now I'm fantasizing about his love. Didn't you say that you should talk about money but not love? When did I lose control of my heart, and fall in love with Alston Copperfield? Maybe it was tempting at the beginning. 8 years ago, when I was just out of college, I was cornered by Alvis Bunyan's medical bills. A person stood at the door of the nightclub in thin and revealing clothes on a big night, biting his lip and blushing, and lowering his head to be looked at unscrupulously by passers-by. There are even some drunk people teasing. I was a cowardly person, who didn't dare go into the nightclub, but I didn't dare go back. That's when Alston Copperfield appeared, and a brand named unruly man walked up to me, blocking out the ill-intentioned gaze for me. Senior sister, you can play too. Alston Copperfield took off his clothes, and my cheeks, which had been whined from the cold, were a little bloody. Knowing that I needed money urgently, Alston Copperfield sighed, and then a wicked smile appeared on his face. Nancy Keppel, you follow me in the future, I will give you 500,000 a month. I looked at the handsome Alston Copperfield in disbelief, grabbed his hand tightly, and exclaimed, I do. Alston Copperfield laughed, and when I realized what I had said, I bowed my head shyly, but I didn't let go of his hand. Just as I was basking in the sweet memories of the past, a call from Alvis Bunyan came. Nancy Keppel, guess who I saw in the hospital? It's Alston Copperfield. Guess what he's here for? Accompany a woman to your prenatal checkup. Alvis Bunyan said 3 words. Dry burned my CPU. I ignored Alvis Bunyan's surprise on the phone and rushed to the hospital. The grievances in my heart turned into tears. Alston Copperfield said a year ago that he had broken off with his other little lovers, and that I was the only one. Why are you accompanying other women for prenatal checkups now? Isn't he still married? I can't believe Alston Copperfield is a man who talks one thing and does another thing behind his back. Although Alston Copperfield was romantic, he was a man of good character. But when I got to the hospital, I was a little afraid to face Alston Copperfield. After all, who am I to question him? I bought some fruit for Alvis Bunyan. It was mangoes. Nancy Keppel, don't be too upset. I picked up a mango, peeled it and fed it to Alvis Bunyan, but he wouldn't eat it. He looked at me with a bitter expression. Nancy Keppel, are you tired of brother Alvis Bunyan now? I looked up at him in confusion, and he looked at me. Nancy Keppel, I'm allergic to mango. My expression was shy. Oh my God, I was immersed in sadness. Mango was Alston Copperfield's favorite food. I had to eat it myself. It was so sweet, but it was getting bitter in my mouth. Alvis Bunyan hugged me. Don't be sad, Nancy Keppel. I snuck into the obstetrics and gynecology department, and I just wanted to catch a glimpse of Alston Copperfield. I listened outside the door to the nurses inside gossiping. You said that the pair just now. The man is so handsome. Why did you find someone 12 years older than him? It must have been the man who coveted the woman's money. What? I know that man. The rich second generation. Really, sister? Then why didn't he find a young and beautiful one? Maybe people like to be older. The female junior holds the gold bricks, and everyone holds 4 gold bricks. I don't believe it. If I had money, I would definitely find a young and handsome one. You dead girl. You just want to. The more I listened, the more uncomfortable I became. What the hell was Alston Copperfield thinking? Did he really like her that much? I returned to Alvis Bunyan's hospital room in a state of despair, feeling no better. Tears kept falling. Alvis Bunyan was coaxing me, but I was crying, and it was uncomfortable. For the next month, I was out of breath. There are those who are alive but are dead. If Alston Copperfield and I hadn't started out with a deformed relationship, maybe I could be on his side now. Alvis Bunyan's illness is almost cured, and this good news has given me a booster. I felt a sense of relief and relief. Great. 8 years later, Alvis Bunyan will be discharged from the hospital soon. I'm going to buy him a safety lock, and I wish him a safe future. But while visiting the mall, I met Alston Copperfield again, and the belly of his marriage partner was already visible. I felt inexplicably sad and angry in my heart. The dog man, who clearly said that it was only me, had other people behind his back? Phew, scumbag, big liar. I raised my middle finger at Alston Copperfield's figure, only to find him stop to talk to someone. Frightened, I quickly turned around. The man he was talking to was Porter Jasper, the son of a local nouveau rich who didn't usually deal with Alston Copperfield. Looking at the two people who don't deal with each other on weekdays, I have to sigh that these rich people are hypocrisy. I bought Alvis Bunyan a 100-gram gold safety lock, because the process is a bit complicated, and I have to wait a while. After Alston Copperfield and Porter Jasper had finished chatting, they went back to the mall with his marrying partner. Just as I was immersed in grief, Porter Jasper came over. I hurriedly lowered my head, not wanting to be recognized. Porter Jasper also brought his little lover to buy jewelry. They stand at the counter, chatting and picking. Porter Jasper's little lover's voice was delicate. Porter Jasper, who was that just now? HMPH. What's the matter, you little prodigal hoof? You squander when you see a handsome guy, right? Let me tell you, that man is the Copperfield family. Porter Jasper looked disdainful, his hand still holding his little lover. But he won't be in the Copperfield family for long. What's going on at Alston Copperfield's house? Porter Jasper, what's going on? HMPH, I know you're a gossip. Kiss me, and I'll tell you. Come on, don't get tired of it. Hey, baby, it's so sweet. Copperfield's family is engaged in ocean shipping, and they used to be very rich. But recently, their company's shipping cargo ship was seized by other countries, and a large amount of goods cannot be delivered, and now they owe tens of billions of dollars. As he spoke, Porter Jasper kissed the woman again. Did you see the woman next to Alston Copperfield? The woman was the eldest lady of a big bank, and she had a lot of fun abroad. Now that I've had enough, I'm pregnant and I'm back, and I'm looking for someone to get married. No, can we Alston Copperfield just be happy to be a father? Ha ha ha. Porter Jasper, you said the baby in Alston Copperfield's woman's womb wasn't his. The woman was shocked, and I was shocked. At the same time, he felt deeply sorry for Alston Copperfield. Of course, that woman became pregnant abroad, but because she had too many miscarriages, she could only give birth, and no one wanted to take over. It just so happened that Copperfield's family begged to go to the bank. So wouldn't Alston Copperfield just be a pick-up man? Porter Jasper said as he smoked a cigarette, his mouth full of disdain for Alston Copperfield. On weekdays, you see that these rich second generations look down on me. But so what? I like whoever I want, and I marry whoever I want. What about them? Even the marriage is not up to me. One or two are still crazy in front of me, rich and young. I'm sorry. Listening to their chat, my heart sank to the bottom. Alston Copperfield, I miss you so much. But there was nothing I could do, and I knew that Alston Copperfield didn't love me. He just had to suffer. I took the gold lock and gave it to Alvis Bunyan to bring it. Looking at the sky and the birds outside the ward, I might try to forget about Alston Copperfield. 8 years of relationship, after all, can't withstand reality? From this moment on, Alston Copperfield was withdrawn from my world. Pain and sorrow intertwined. Alvis Bunyan was discharged from the hospital, where he had been in the hospital for 8 years. Looking at his tearful appearance, I felt that he really had feelings. Nancy Keppel, I'm really reluctant to leave now. Oh, yes, 30,000 yuan a month. That's fine. I'm too willing. I took Alvis Bunyan back to the house, and after the departure of a handsome man, a humorous man moved in. Nancy Keppel, why don't you have a pillow in the second bedroom? Find it yourself in the cupboard. Nancy Keppel, can I sleep during the day and play at night? If you like it. Nancy Keppel, Nancy Keppel, Nancy Keppel. That's enough. Alvis Bunyan, my mother told you, I was dumped by Alston Copperfield, and I'm in a bad mood right now. Don't bother me. With an angry face, I glared at the doorway with my teeth and claws, only to look up and see that it was Alston Copperfield. Silence is Cambridge tonight, I tentatively said gently. Do you believe me when I said that the person just now wasn't me? Alston Copperfield curled the corners of his mouth. I don't believe it. All my gentle and well-behaved personality collapsed. Okay. I looked at Alston Copperfield with a frustrated face, but immediately looked at Alston Copperfield with a happy face. I haven't seen him for nearly a year, and he is still handsome, but he has a lot more sorrow. I walked quickly to Alston Copperfield's side and tried to hug him, but stopped. He smiled and stroked my hair, his eyes looking at me with affection. Nancy Keppel, do you see my panties? Alvis Bunyan came out of the bathroom naked at this time, and my face suddenly darkened. How many times have I told him that there are girls in the family who want to be civilized, but he just doesn't listen. Like a peacock with the screen open, Alston Copperfield looked at Alvis Bunyan with cold eyes, and I quickly explained. Alston Copperfield, you listen to me. He is my brother. Oh, brother love. I blushed and grabbed Alston Copperfield's arm. No, Alston Copperfield, you listen to me. Alston Copperfield suddenly fluttered and laughed. Okay, I know he's your brother. After all, you've been with me for so many years, and your vision must be great. Hey, Alston Copperfield believes me. All right, Nancy Keppel, I'm getting married next week. Alston Copperfield said as he handed me a red, gilded invitation. My mind was pounded violently, and I was stunned. Immediately, the bitterness in my heart spread to my mouth, and I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, but I couldn't. I just sobbed so that the tears would not fall, and slowly took the invitation with my hand. Alston Copperfield looked at me tenderly, and I gave him a crying smile. Okay, I'll go. Alston Copperfield sighed, stroked my hair, and left. As he passed by Alvis Bunyan's side, he glanced at Alvis Bunyan contemptuously, and patted Alvis Bunyan's newly trained chest muscles with his hand. Tut tut, weak. Hey, what do you stinky boy say? Tell you, when you get married, we'll go empty-handed. Alvis Bunyan angrily yelled at Alston Copperfield, apparently disrupted by Alston Copperfield's words. Okay. Alston Copperfield waved his hand, and disappeared from my view. I lowered my head. The invitation in my hand fell to the ground, and tears flowed out of my eyes. I wanted to beg Alston Copperfield to stay, to beg him not to marry that woman, but I couldn't do anything about it. Alvis Bunyan came over to wipe away my tears, and poured me a glass of water, with a sad face. Don't cry, it's all my fault. Why don't we go and grab a kiss? I'll help you get Alston Copperfield back. I looked up at him and muttered, HMPH, weak. I already knew that Alston Copperfield would marry another woman, but when it came to this day, I found that I couldn't accept it. After crying for a while, I'm fine. Picking up the invitation on the ground, I didn't dare to look at it. I thought that a year would be enough time for me to let go of Alston Copperfield, but I found that my feelings were getting stronger. As Alston Copperfield's wedding date drew closer, I missed him even more. I don't think about tea, I don't want to eat, and of course, Alvis Bunyan is also emaciated. After living in the hospital for 8 years, he obviously gained a lot of weight, and he had no choice but to lose weight. On this day, Alvis Bunyan changed the style of the sand sculpture of the past and looked at me, with a serious face. Nancy Keppel, do you like Alston Copperfield that much? Of course, but he's getting married. I know. I swallowed the bitter water in my heart, and looked up at the sky outside the window, my melancholy expression so resolute. Alvis Bunyan put his arm around my shoulder. Nancy Keppel, I like you. Forget Alston Copperfield. Stay with me. You're crazy. We're brother and sister. I was shocked by Alvis Bunyan's sudden confession. I didn't expect him to play so big. It's not related by blood. It doesn't matter. Alvis Bunyan's persistence can only make me sigh. Alvis Bunyan, even if we are not related by blood, I will not like you. We can only be brothers and sisters. Seeing Alvis Bunyan's serious look, I categorically rejected him. The rabbit still doesn't eat the grass next to the nest, not to mention that I am too familiar with him to call. If you like Alston Copperfield so much, why can't you like me? But he still didn't give up. I like Alston Copperfield as much as you like me, and the sea won't change. Alvis Bunyan was hurt by my words, and looked at me with a sad expression. But he was still unwilling. Is it really impossible? Really? But what if Alston Copperfield never comes back for the rest of his life? Then I'll wait for him, for the rest of my life. He went back to the bedroom with a sad look on his face, and dropped the protein powder. I curled myself up, and buried my head in my knees. Alvis Bunyan's words made me understand that I really like Alston Copperfield and I love him. On Alston Copperfield's wedding day, Alvis Bunyan went. I didn't. I'm a coward, and I don't dare to watch the person I like enter the palace of marriage with another woman. I'm going to go crazy. I took the money in my hand, and opened a dessert shop with Alvis Bunyan. It's easy to work on weekdays. It was I who completely cut myself out of the world of Alston Copperfield. While tidying up the house, I found a photo of me with Alston Copperfield, taken in my 2nd year with him. That time, I was so pampered by him, that I slapped him when I knew that he had other little lovers. At that time, he looked at me in disbelief, wanting to get angry, but he patiently coaxed me. In the end, I forgave him, and the price was a January trip to the Maldives. I rubbed my fingers over the photo, thinking that I was really too much at that time. How could there be a little lover who hit the gold master? Alston Copperfield didn't bother with me. Who cannot love such a man? The business of the cake shop was uneventful. Alvis Bunyan was making pastries inside, and I was bored scrolling on my phone. At this moment, the curtain of the door flicked, and a figure that I had been thinking about day and night appeared. It was Alston Copperfield, who had seen him again after more than half a year. I was in a trance, and suddenly I didn't know how to speak. How are you doing, Nancy Keppel? Alston Copperfield spoke, his voice a little hoarse. Pretty good. What about you? I looked at him obsessively, and he had lost a lot of weight, and the dark green under his eyes was so thick that he was black, and he was a little haggard. Alston Copperfield didn't speak, but stared at me blankly. I poured him a glass of water and told him to sit down. He pursed his lips and suddenly leaned against me. I hurriedly grabbed his shoulder and took my hand. Nancy Keppel, let me lean in for a moment. I patted him on the back in distress, and it was so quiet for a while. Alston Copperfield, perhaps too tired from work, fell asleep. I adjusted my body to make him sleep more comfortably. About half an hour later, Alston Copperfield woke up. He smiled apologetically at me. Alston Copperfield, don't get too tired. Pay attention to your body. I still couldn't hold back my words. His eyes lit up and he immediately hugged me. The hoarse voice carried a thick grievance. Nancy Keppel, I'm so tired. I miss you so much. Alston Copperfield's words made my already frozen atrium begin to break the ice. Alston Copperfield, I miss you too. I think so much. I think so much. We hugged each other tightly and I felt like a thief. Enjoy this moment of hard-won tenderness. Nancy Keppel, let's get back together. Alston Copperfield's words made my heart beat hard. However, I can be a lover, but I can't be a mistress. I was about to say no, but Alston Copperfield spoke up again, and lit up my heart. Nancy Keppel, I'm divorced. Just left. I was immediately wrapped in a huge surprise, and I laughed in disbelief. Great backslash, Carrot v Carrot. Alston Copperfield was a little bitter. Nancy Keppel, I'm divorced. Are you so happy? Of course I'm glad. Alston Copperfield, I love you. Divorced. You belong to me again. My face was flushed, but my eyes were full of genuine admiration, and the decadence between Alston Copperfield's brows was swept away. Nancy Keppel, I love you too. My heart fluttered, and I pinched myself hard. It's true. It's not a dream. By the way, Alston Copperfield, why did you get divorced? I didn't want to ask, but I couldn't help it. I would like to know everything about Alston Copperfield. I didn't like her in the first place, and I married her because she needed a marriage certificate to give birth to a child. It just so happened that my family needed help from hers, so I made a deal. Alston Copperfield looked at me, with a dark look in his eyes. Nancy Keppel, you know what? I've never touched her. Alston Copperfield's words made my heart flutter, and I shy lowered my head and whispered, got it, got it. Hey, hey, are you going to flirt and go home? There's still business in the store. Alvis Bunyan's grief, angry, an angry voice came from behind. Alvis Bunyan, I'll take Nancy Keppel home first. Alston Copperfield greeted Alvis Bunyan with a smile on his face, but Alvis Bunyan gritted his teeth in anger. Brother, Alston Copperfield and I will go back first. I took Alston Copperfield's hand and walked out, and Alvis Bunyan grinded his teeth behind him, and sure enough, he forgot about his brother when he had a partner. When I got home with Alston Copperfield again, I didn't know why, but I suddenly felt a little more shy, like the kind of little girl who secretly brings her boyfriend back while her parents are not at home. Nancy Keppel, I've been thinking about you since I was separated from you. Alston Copperfield's affectionate styles, but the simplest words touched me deeply. I couldn't take it anymore, hugged him and cried, Alston Copperfield, I miss you so much. I think you have a smaller appetite. Alston Copperfield hugged me tightly. After crying for a while, I collapsed into Alston Copperfield's arms, sobbing quietly. He carried me to the bed in the bedroom and kissed me. We slept in each other's arms. When I woke up, it was late in the evening, and I rubbed my sleepy eyes and counted Alston Copperfield's eyelashes. Depict his facial features with his gaze. Alston Copperfield couldn't get enough of it, but Alston Copperfield suddenly opened his eyes. Standing up, he smiled wickedly at me, and the quilt slipped off, revealing his muscular muscles. I can see that my saliva is dripping, hissing and hissing. Nancy Keppel, woke up so soon. Would you like to do something happy with me? I was shy, but my eyes were shining. Just as I was about to do something happy with him, he pulled out a comb. Yes, that's right, it's a comb. Then comb my hair. I'm really convinced. That's what you said about the happy thing. My expectations were in vain. Nancy Keppel, my mom told me when I was a kid that if I liked her, I would use this comb to comb her head. My heart warms as I feel Alston Copperfield's fingers run across my scalp. You know, Nancy Keppel. This comb was my grandmother's dowry, and she passed it on to my mother. Alston Copperfield was somewhat silent when it came to his mother, who left when he was a child. I was also a little silent, and my mother also left when I was a child. After combing his hair, Alston Copperfield said he would take me back to his family. This is the first time I've been home with Alston Copperfield as his girlfriend in 8 years. I followed Alston Copperfield back to the suburban villa with some restraint. Along the way, he held my hand, and I was a little nervous. Alston Copperfield, will my uncle not approve of us being together? Don't worry, Nancy Keppel, my dad will definitely agree. Alston Copperfield's villa is not what I imagined it to be, but rather cozy. When we went into the living room, Alston Copperfield's father was drinking tea. When I saw us, I didn't have the momentum of the boss father in the novel, and I was very kind. I hurriedly handed the gift in my hand to the butler. It's Nancy Keppel, right? This stinky boy is finally willing to bring you back. Alston Copperfield's father was so kind that my nervousness suddenly disappeared. I turned to look at Alston Copperfield, winked at him and asked him what was wrong. Before I came, I thought about how to deal with the trouble of giving you 5 million to leave my son. But I didn't. No wonder there is a big gap between fiction and reality. Excuse me, uncle, but I'm just coming to see you with Alston Copperfield. Senior Copperfield waved at me. Don't speak for this kid. If he had brought you back sooner, my grandson would have been hugged by now. As a result, it took 8 years. Stinky boy, tell me honestly, are you not good? I was a little stunned. What's going on? What's going on in 8 years? What other father doubts that his son is not good? Alston Copperfield, okay, I don't know. Perhaps the puzzled look on my face was too obvious. And Senior Copperfield looked at Alston Copperfield as well. Stinky boy, didn't you confess to Nancy Keppel? Alston Copperfield sighed, a rare blush on his face. No. What are they talking about? Why can't I understand it? Senior Copperfield coughed a few times and asked the old butler to take him out into the garden to bask in the sun. The old butler was still smiling, and said to me with satisfaction, "Young master, I haven't been so shy for a long time." For a moment, Alston Copperfield and I were the only ones left in the huge living room looking at each other. Alston Copperfield, what's going on? My voice was gentle, but with a hint of gnashing of teeth. Do I have to tie him up and whip him with a little leather whip before he confides in me? What's going on? With a little bit of anticipation, I thought to myself, but there was a perverted smile on my face as I looked at Alston Copperfield. He took a few steps back with some concern. Nancy Keppel, don't laugh like that. I'm scared. Then say, I'm already thinking about what color hemp rope would be better to tie him up. Alston Copperfield rubbed his blushing cheeks, and his handsome face said with an embarrassed look, actually, I liked you when I met you 8 years ago, and after all these years, I was the only one with you. Awesome. Alston Copperfield is already the representative of the language class. This will sum it up. In just 27 words, it gave me endless shock. Let's tie it up with hemp rope and torture it. Seeing my expressions of shock, delight, confusion, and relief, Alston Copperfield continued, Nancy Keppel, when I was at the college sorority, I liked you at first sight. Later, before I had time to confess to you, the nightclub incident happened. After being with you, those little lovers are fake, and I have never touched a woman other than you. Alston Copperfield blushed, and I only realized at this moment, how can a man be so handsome? How can a man have so much potential to be an agent? I've been with me for 8 years, and I haven't said a word to me. I always thought I was a dusty woman, who was raised by the rich second generation. I didn't expect that I could even get the heroine script, who was loved at first sight by the rich second generation. I didn't know for a moment whether to cry or laugh. How many times over the years have I thought that Alston Copperfield was secretly sad with other little lovers? I don't know how many tears have been shed because of Alston Copperfield's fake affair. I always thought that I was the kind of little pity who fell silently in love with the gold master. In the end, I found that I had all the love of the gold owner. Now, there's nothing to worry about. I love Alston Copperfield. Alston Copperfield loves me, And that's the best ending. A two-way love is always better than making do after being tortured. I hugged Alston Copperfield's head and kissed him viciously. I followed his example and used my tongue to rob the air in his mouth. He was very obedient to me. Then, we had dinner as a family. And then, is there anything more shameful than tying up your boyfriend and letting him read the browsing history on his phone? After a night of madness, Alston Copperfield lay in bed untouched, even though my girlfriend leaned into his arms, unmoved. I sighed and exhaled with pleasure. Since then, I have never had any secrets with Alston Copperfield. The next day, Alston Copperfield limped down the stairs, and the caring old butler brought him ointment. Senior Copperfield told us to be more modest, and with a wave of his hand, he gave me another 5 million pocket money. I accepted the accusation with Alston Copperfield's humiliated eyes. My wedding to Alston Copperfield is scheduled for September next year. After lunch at the old house, we went back home. As soon as I entered the door, I saw Alvis Bunyan exuding resentment. Just as I was thinking about whether to find a master to get it, Alvis Bunyan screamed, "Alston Copperfield, you bastard!" Alvis Bunyan's finger pointed at me and Alston Copperfield's necks, and I looked at him, as a mark from our madness last night. Alston Copperfield smiled defiantly at Alvis Bunyan, and I quickly pulled Alston Copperfield through the door. Alvis Bunyan followed us in, and said in pieces, "The family is unfortunate. The family is unfortunate. The little cabbage I worked so hard to raise has been arched." As for Alvis Bunyan's plan to learn Taekwondo, Alston Copperfield and I were supportive. After all, Alston Copperfield is a black belt, and you can still teach him. For the rest of his life, he will be with Alston Copperfield. The end.